member, and we're actually missing two. So Jessica, you actually can be a voting member tonight. If you
Wonderful, thank you.
Hear us and so forth. So cool. Okay. Any public comment? I don't think we have anybody from the public. Okay. Okay, the meeting minutes from October 12th, 2023. Any edits to those meeting minutes?
Just the date.
Just a date, okay, we have a corrected date. All right, motion to approve as amended with the corrected date.
Approved.
You have to make a motion.
I make a motion.
Okay, second?
I'll second that.
Second with Sam, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Melissa's abstaining, all right. I think everybody else was a yes, so, all right. I don't have a financial summary. We're early in the month and some staff issues, so I don't think there's any big changes from last month, so I think we're okay there. So we are you waiting for Bart, or are we ready to get into the master plan stuff? Because we can move ahead with some other stuff and then come back to it?
Yeah, I don't know who's controlling the presentation up there. I don't know if you
He does a, remember he has a presentation he wanted to show, I think?
Yeah, okay, I can get
Okay.
that going.
All right. Well, we'll jump back. So let's go to some committee reports. So Brian from Town Council.
Okay, the state has set the property tax rate for the town at 9.3% or $29.49. Tax bills will be due on December 5th. The Lamprey River footbridge, which we found was a bit, and it was decaying faster than we thought. It's still usable for the next few years, and we are going to hold off replacing that until, basically we think there are grants available to replace the bridge. It's still usable, just not for like motor vehicles and such. If you're walking across it, you're fine.
And can you maybe just explain where that is for people that aren't familiar with the bridge?
Yes. Where the McAllen Dam is, like so by the mill, and so everyone knows where the dam is, and you know the footbridge and that goes across it. They basically just found that the salt, some of the water had gotten up in it, and it was rusting a little bit on the inside, and we're going to have to replace it sooner than we thought. So in the meantime, while we look for grants, and it's just going to be, and we're not just going to allow like motor vehicles on it, but it's safe to walk on.
So, and that's, just to be clear, that's not the bridge on 108, that's the footbridge
No.
that goes from the mills
Right.
to 4 Bryant Park.
Yes, that is the footbridge, not the drive, not 108.
So do people use motorized, like a motorized bike, or? what do-
I guess,
Like an ATV,
or,
you know, it wouldn't even fit something like an ATV,
Yeah.
but just so people are clear.
Clear, they use
Yeah.
that, yeah, okay. Yeah, great, okay.
let's see, Jimmy Olet was as a nominee to the Energy Environment Committee, Gerald Martin reappointed to the Lamprey River Advisory Committee, and yeah, that was the main things. Thanks for that.
All right. Planning board, Jeff's not here. Oh, Jeff couldn't make it tonight either. Remember that. So we'll come back to that in a sec, but let's, do you have anything on Riverfront besides the whole planning initiative stuff? Or?
I do, so I'm fine if you want to go to them and
Okay.
come back to me.
All right, let's do that. So we are going to jump back and talk about the master plan update, open space chapter with Bart and Autumn from Stratford Regional Planning Commission. So you guys are on tap. Oh, I just need to make one thing. So Julie arrived, Tyson, who's a regular member. So Jessica, if you can still hear us, because I don't think we can see you with that, you're no longer a voting member tonight because the regular member is here. Sorry about that.
No problem, thank you.
No, we're just missing, oh, we are missing. So we can still have 2 alternates? Okay, sorry, take it back. You're still voting.
Go back in.
You're back in. You win the.
Great.
Not sure we have anything to vote on. All right, Bart.
So, yes, thank you. Bart McDonough, Plant Director, Town Newmarket. Myself and Nam are here this evening to kind of to go over the open space master plan, where we are really, where we're going. And So we're just here to do that and have a discussion. We know we signed you some little homework last time to go over the open space matrix. And we're gonna have a conversation about that once we get there, but really we're just gonna talk about the process, current conditions, and then really open up discussion when we go tackle the matrix to see, how we want this, where the foundation should be at this point. So with that, I'm going to leave it to Autumn to just give a brief overview of this timeline and all the components that are involved with it.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. Sorry I couldn't meet with you last month. Had some family stuff. So I'm Autumn. I'm from the Regional Planning Commission. I'm going to be managing this part of the master plan overhaul that is going on, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But this piece of the project is updating the open space master plan chapter, and it's funded through the Department of Environmental Services local source water protection program. So you'll notice there's a lot of attention to drinking water because that is what is expected from our funders, and obviously drinking water is important. So yeah, we'll go ahead and I'll introduce you to the project team. You can go to the next slide. I don't know. Great. Okay. For some reason, the words are not showing up on my slides, but that's okay. I've moved them. I do, yeah.
Yeah, maybe plug it in.
Or I don't have a USB, but I can plug in my laptop. Sorry about that.
We sometimes have AV problems here, so that's okay.
That's the meeting right there.
Oh, okay.
So 851 56 98 09 20.
All right. I have not done this in a while. Okay. There it is. Great. Okay. As I said, funded through DES Local Source Water Protection Program. That is their drinking water grant. And this is the full master plan update project team. So you can see myself up there, and that's my email. You can email me whenever you like. And then my colleague Jackson, our GIS planner, is going to have a pretty heavy role in this project. Of course, creating some mapping products and complementary data items. and then several of our senior and younger staff, including Rachel, who is our data analyst, Kyle and Lisa are our principal and senior planner, and Kyle is also our assistant director at SRPC. Mark is a regional planner like myself. Natalie is our economic development coordinator, and Angie is also an economic development planner. So they'll be working on various parts of the project, but mainly Jackson and myself will be communicating with you all for this chapter. So the goal of this project is to, of course, update the chapter itself, but also to develop materials and different activities to engage some Newmarket residents in the planning process, and then protecting our drinking water resources through conserving open lands and other land management activities. We measure success of the project by hopefully adopting the updated chapter. And then tracking the number of community members that were engaging in the process, and prioritizing land conservation based on the drinking water resource availability in town, and engaging municipal staff in long-term planning for drinking water quality. And at the end of the day, this plan should be a tool for you all to use in your decision-making processes, and it should also be a resource for residents to understand the landscape of town more and engage in stewardship of open space. So this is one of the maps that we submitted with the proposal. I know it looks a little busy, but we wanted to demonstrate to the funders some of the elements of the coastal conservation plan that would be used in this project. So groundwater resources, as you can see, provide different ecosystem services that maintain and improve water quality and quantity, support biodiversity, recreation, and flood storage. You can see the flood storage purple layer on the map there. And conserving open space is critical to addressing existing and future contamination sources for drinking water, and then maintaining and improving the function and value of those ecosystem services that protect the water resources. And all of the data on this map came from the Coastal Watershed Conservation Plan. And I just wanted to include this. I'm sure some of you are probably aware of this plan, but I just wanted to include this and show you how much went into prioritizing different conservation areas in the Coastal Watershed Conservation Plan. So all of the regional and state plan of years past were included in that methodology of searching for the most co-occurrences of, environmental benefit of those focus areas. And I should note, I know you can see some of the numbers, several years ago, 2016, but though those plans that were included were developed back then, all of the data was most up to date once that plan was created. So this is the task outline for the project. We've already completed task 1, internal kickoff with BART and town staff. And today we're starting the kickoff with you all. And hopefully establishing some regular check-ins with the Conservation Commission. And then we're starting to through the matrix from the last plan. And then behind the scenes, myself and Jackson have reviewed the existing plan and other plans like the Coastal Conservation Plan, and taken and updated the maps in the old plan with new data that is available, but not change much else, so you can all kind of start with that same foundation and decide where to go from there. And then after today, we'll hopefully be releasing a community survey, which we'll go over within the next month or so, and then starting to develop that first draft narrative based on our research and what we hear back from the survey. And then you can see the task later on. We will conduct a goal-setting workshop and presentation to the Conservation Commission once the plan is updated, and then also hopefully some other boards in town that might have a stake in the plan, and then leading to public hearing and adoption, hopefully. So this is our general timeline of some of those tasks that you just saw. So we're in November now, reviewing our progress, revising the map set, maybe adding in some other maps if you so choose, establishing our check-ins, scheduling a goal-setting workshop, and beginning the survey process. And then in December, we'll end up reviewing hopefully a first draft narrative, or at the very least an outline, continuing to promote the survey, and then prepping for future workshops. January, hosting a goal-setting workshop, closing the survey, again reviewing the draft narrative pending on where it is at the point. February, same thing, continuing those tasks. And then in March, hopefully really closing out the narrative piece, and reviewing the goals and recommendations from the prior workshops. In April, approving those final recommendations in the plan, and prepping to wrap up with other boards in town. And then in May, this is when the funding source kind of closes. So we really like to get most things done by then, and hopefully hosting a wrap up, any final last revisions, and beginning the adoption process. So as I mentioned, over the next 2 years, SRPC and the town of Newmarket are going to be conducting a comprehensive full overhaul of the town's master plan. And so the open space chapter is going to connect and overlap with a lot of these existing chapter updates, and then chapters that are being created from scratch, like recreation, and the riverfront design, which will be very exciting. So just like to keep this in mind as we go along, keep those synergies in mind, and making sure that we're not duplicating things in chapters. So there's a lot of words on this slide. I'll sum it up for you. But I know that you all have done some work with New Hampshire Fish and Game and Gibner on the Connect to Protect project, Trails for People and Wildlife. So they have an interest in continuing to provide some technical assistance and making sure that those work products are included in the plan. So Lynn Vaccaro, Emma Tutian, and I'm forgetting the last person that has volunteered for technical assistance, but if you so choose, they're happy to help with the project. And then something exciting that we've done at SRPC, we have in the past partnered with which is bachelor students, and their capstone project is to do something in the community and have a community project. So we've submitted this project for next spring students, and their work products would be completely separate from ours. So, we're not giving you a plan created by seniors, but they'll supplement, and they'll be able to kind of join us along the public adoption process and kind of showing them the ropes of local land use. So hopefully that works out and it'll be a really fun opportunity to get some fresh ideas. So our final deliverables, this is a long list, and this is just written in the grant outline, so I wanted to make sure I included it somewhere. Of course, summary of progress towards the 2007 recommendations, which we've already kind of started compiling, literature review notes after our review of local and regional plans, which will be included in a final report, your revised map set, which we've already begun, first and second draft of the open space chapter, community survey and summarized results, all of the outreach materials that we develop to both promote the survey and solicit input for the chapter itself. And then we'll also, if Bart would like, help write the public notice language and different educational materials for the public hearing at the planning board meeting. And then, of course, your final draft with everything cohesive and combined. So now we can get to the fun part and actually start talking about what you may or may not have looked at yet. So I'd like to talk about the 2007 recommendations. I know I've already received some comments from Ellen. And I guess, I don't know if you want to start with your comments, because I don't know if other folks have comments planned, or I can pull up the matrix and we can go
Yeah, I
one by
think you
one.
should, yeah, I think we should work off, if people want to look at it on the screen and, does everybody have their copy with us? Maybe you could hand out some if you have them.
The national cutoff, so maybe not bring that up.
Oh, yep, yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. So I guess, I'll start. I wrote this, so I went back. So it was sort of easy for me to go back through and I guess what I just generally, I mean, I have, mine are pretty specific comments that Autumn has about, whether things were completed or not, or some of the details, but I think my overall conclusion that the recommendations are, a lot of them are still quite valid. They're sort of ongoing kinds of recommendations, and so quite a few I thought should be kept or just slightly modified, or put what was accomplished since 2007. I guess there were a few I could go through and say, like for let me see, continue. I think everything was sort of continue. If you get down to under education and stewardship, number 12, I don't know if it's numbered the same way. If you're a land trust, you abide by these what's called Land Trust Alliance standards and practices. And at that time, when we wrote this original plan, that was, we were kind of like a land trust at the time because we were doing a lot of land conservation. But I'm not sure a lot of towns do that, so it's probably something that is not necessarily needed. So it was one I thought we could remove unless we thought it was really important. I think that was for the council to perhaps adopt, but I'm not sure it's necessary as a town. And then if we get down under, actually number 14, which there was also the Great Bay Resource Protection Partnership, which is this coalition that does land conservation. It was doing it and it's now regrouped and it's doing it again. And they had these sort of management coalitions that they put together. So we had one, there was one for Tuttle Swamp where we own, the town of Newmarket owns land and Fish and Game had land and the Nature Conservancy was involved. And so we would meet periodically to talk about joint management issues. That doesn't really happen anymore. It's kind of an interesting idea, but everybody's busy and the only owners there, Fish and Game kind of owns all the property that the partnership helps conserve, and then we own land. So I don't know if we want to leave that kind of thing in there. And then under land conservation, back then we said 100% for land use change tax, so that was, obviously we still have that interest, so we want to pursue that, I think. Anyway, there's other stuff, and I can forward people my comments if that would be helpful. I don't think did I do that? I don't think I sent everybody mine, so I could have done that, sorry about that. But most of the stuff was sort of continue or slightly modify, I think.
Yeah.
Was that your impression?
Yeah, that's the impression that I got when I went to create questions. I felt like I had a good idea of what I needed to put in the survey. Obviously, pending your additional suggestions, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe people can have some more time to. I mean, this is sort of you sort of put the recommendations together, once you write the narrative.
Yeah.
So we're sort of, just reviewing it for that perspective, right? Because eventually you'll come back and
Yep.
have a whole
Yeah,
new set of
eventually
narrative
we'll revisit this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this has given me a good gut check. If folks feel comfortable, I can, or Bart can send Ellen's comments out in my follow-up email,
Sure.
and you can
I
add
think
to
that'd
them
be fine.
if
Yeah.
you like, if you have anything else to add for the next meeting. And yeah,
No, just, can you see that for a sec? So, back then, we had the Open Space Commission at the same time, so that was the commission that helped spend the bond or make recommendations for the bond that we had passed. So I took that out because that's no longer, there is no longer an Open Space Commission. And then, I'm not sure why we had the town webmaster there. I must have thought that was like the new thing apparently, the web back then. So we probably could get rid of that. Yeah, and DPW, I don't know if it's I guess I just recommended it still be a category, so, yeah. So there's just a couple of columns that I thought would come out.
Yeah, and then I over your spreadsheet of open space projects with town funds.
Yeah, so we have really good, I think, pretty good data. We have spreadsheets of all of the land that the town of Newmarket, conservation land that the town of Newmarket owns, or that holds an easement or holds an executory interest, so we have all the background of when it was conserved and all that. And I'm still working on it a little bit, but I have a spreadsheet of the conservation fund money that's been spent since, I think, 2008. Can't remember how far back it goes, but so it has, you know, the project, and so I'm working on a full spreadsheet, so it has the project, what the project costs, and then where all the different sources of funding came from for each land conservation project, so it can show what we spent as a town and what we were able to get in terms of grants from other partners. I think that will be really helpful in terms of if we want to go for the 100% land use change tax.
Go for the 100% what?
The land use change tax, if we want to ask the community, you know, we think it would be helpful if we had the 100% into the conservation fund to continue to do both land conservation as well as stewardship projects. So.
Yeah, I think once you're done with them, or before you're done with them, those would be great to help with the first draft narrative.
Okay, yeah.
More context for me, is you are clearly the knowledge holder of all things conservation in Newmarket. So that's great. So I think if you all want, I can pull up the survey questions. Bart just sent them out today, so I did not expect you to have looked at them already. We just reviewed them with the master plan subcommittee upstairs. So I can go over the open space questions, and if you feel like there are any gaps or questions that you have for community members that aren't addressed relating to open space, conservation, parks, etc., then we can, you know, take those comments now.
Did everybody get the survey today? It went to the
Okay,
committee,
no
right? I
worries.
don't think it went to the Conservation Commission, so maybe, could you just
So
back up a
you
little bit
didn't
and
get
describe
that
the
email?
survey? 'Cause I
Yes,
don't think-
yeah.
Yeah.
So I lied, you didn't get an email today with the survey link. But, so with the other master plan chapter updates going on right now, my colleague Angie is working on the housing chapter. And so we've decided to, instead of exhausting residents with multiple surveys at the same time, combine those two and touch on housing and open space and sort of that development balance in the same survey. And so we developed a list of draft questions, and I did take a look at the 2007 recommendations a little bit as I was drafting them. And I'll just say, keep in mind when you see these questions that there will be other opportunities for engagement, so if we don't touch on every single detail, we just want to be mindful that we're not creating a 30-minute survey. But yeah, we can go over those now, if that makes sense to everyone. Just pull them up. And then after this meeting, I can send the link to all of you, and you can actually comment directly on the survey, because we use the platform SurveyMonkey. So that'll be super easy, and you don't have to email back and forth. All right, so this is just the sort of welcome slide. telling folks what the survey is, why we're doing it, thanking people for taking it. And then I won't bore you with all of the demographic and housing questions, since that is not our charge here today. But of course, you are welcome to look and comment on them once you receive the link. So we start on question 25 here. Open space in Newmarket. On a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied are you with the current accessibility and usage of open spaces in our community? And I'll note, of course, accessibility means different things to a lot of different people, but this is just a general getting the pulse of how folks feel. And then we can ask more detailed questions after the survey is complete. And feel free to stop me at any time and make a comment as I go through these. Number 26, getting to that balance between housing and open space. So how well do you think the balance is currently being maintained? Because we know housing is probably the most important type of development, or most pressured type of development right now. 27, how important is it for new housing developments to incorporate eco-friendly designs and sustainable practices? It may be that I don't love the way this question is worded. It may be more relevant to open space to include something that actually mentions open space in new housing development, but also recognizing that there are denser areas that don't all have land.
Yeah, I wonder if it could be more, like, I think one of the questions seems like it would be about, does one support like infilling and denser development so that it conserves
Yeah.
water and open space, or somehow getting at that versus,
Yeah, that is.
because I think
I like that.
we've already been on record, this past year of supporting the ADU concept, and so
Mhm.
we all, I think, at least the commission recognized that housing is really important, and we want to balance it with open
Right.
space. And so I think somehow getting the question to, it's not one or the other, right? It's where do we think development makes sense? I'm just saying that generally from how we want to hear from people if that's what they would support, I think.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense, and wording like that makes more sense.
Partly because what is eco-friendly designs? I mean, that's the
Yeah.
problem, right? I don't know what that means.
Can mean a lot of things and also nothing at all. Okay, that's helpful insight. Number 28, how frequently do you and your family utilize local parks or recreational areas for outdoor activities? And I understand this isn't directly how often do you use open space, but this will be helpful for that connection between parks, recreation, like recreation chapter, and open space.
Can you add, like, would it be possible to say local parks, recreational areas, or conservation areas?
Yeah, I like that.
And what's the definition of local? What's the intended definition?
Yeah, I suppose the intended definition would be town parks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can replace local
Yeah,
with
that's
town.
town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Alright. And then, so I didn't mention this before, but I did include a few questions in this relating to the downtown riverfront chapter that we'll be writing, just because we're, again, trying not to create engagement fatigue and include a little bit about each chapter as much as we can in each engagement opportunity, where it makes sense. So, recognizing balancing density and such, how often is it in the downtown riverfront area? Daily, weekly, monthly. 30, how important is preserving and enhancing the natural environment of the riverfront to you? And this is kind of speaking to the living shoreline at Shandon Park.
Sorry, about
Yeah.
the riverfront. Bart, I know when you were talking about this, you were thinking also like of Heron Point as well as the, you know, the downtown side. Are we still thinking that for these questions, or is this talking about just the down, because I think people are gonna think it's just the downtown side.
Yeah, I
and
think
so-
that's a good point.
I think we can maybe, we can phrase the question in a manner where, would you support connecting alternative access to Heron Point?
Or add-
Yeah,
add a
something like
question
that,
or
adding
something.
questions, you know, just to see where people are at on that.
Yeah, I think that is a good point too, and perhaps I'll noodle with the wording a little bit so that it doesn't lead people to believe we're just talking about that dense
Yeah.
part of downtown. All right, 31, and this one is more specifically for the downtown, thinking about how people get there. Because of course there is some parking, there was previously public transit, Wildcat Transit, walking and biking, e-biking and scooters. So this will be helpful when thinking about in zoning, like how certain things are defined, and then obviously improving the connectivity between the riverfront area and other parts of town. And then how would you rate the accessibility of the downtown riverfront for pedestrians and cyclists? This is thinking about, is there, you know, areas for parking, non-car vehicles? Yeah, I don't love the wording of this one either, so I will probably noodle that a little bit.
Yeah, just thinking about, because we do talk about accessibility in a different way, and
Yeah.
you mean, like, is there a bike rack, you're saying, so it's not accessible from, if you have an accessibility issue.
From
But it's,
ability standpoint, yeah.
can you even get there if you walk, or can you get there on a bike, is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Am I
I
thinking
think,
that question?
yeah, I think that is more the intent of the question, so, yeah, making sure not to use the term accessibility
that
with
has-
both definitions.
okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. How do you envision the downtown riverfront contributing to the overall identity and character of the community? Check all that apply. And I think there is something missing here. I feel like there should perhaps be another option relating to the balance between preserving open space and the downtown riverfront. So that's
Yeah, you know, there's a surprising amount of nature that you can see from the riverfront. So
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
capturing that somehow.
yes.
Yeah, something environmental, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
environmental tangential.
yeah.
And here's the catchphrase for the 300th anniversary.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That was 34. And this one, again, talking about that balance between housing and open space, so asking people actually how would they prioritize the resources themselves between those choices. How effective do you think local educational programs are in informing residents about the importance of protecting water resources and preserving open space? This is to get an idea of, you know, folks who maybe are or are not engaged, how they think they're being educated, and if that can be improved. And then the last one here, would you support the implementation of stricter regulations to protect our water resources from potential contamination?
I'm wondering if 35 might be more quantifiable, rather than how effective do you think it is? Something along the lines of, are you learning about it, or are you seeing it versus, you know?
Yeah, no, I like that better as well. I think that language makes a lot, will make more sense to people.
I think the way it's worded might lead people more often than not to claim neutral, and that doesn't do you any good.
Right, yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. All right. To the next
On the water resources, is it, because a big chunk of funding is from the drinking water program, does it make any sense to talk about, to say what water resources we're talking about, like to say drinking water and wetlands and water? Or
Yeah, so we did
Define?
previously, we actually changed this after our meeting with staff on Monday. It did previously say drinking water resources, like wells and such. But then thinking about, Lindsay, I forget what her comment was, but Lindsay had commented,
How everything's connected, to drinking water, so your wetland protection.
Yeah, no, I
and
totally
yeah,
agree. I just
so-
wonder if people will know what we're talking about, the whole, we're talking about all of it. I was thinking more of a parentheses, like drinking water,
yeah, like give
wetlands,
examples.
rivers.
Yeah,
Kinda like the examples after the words.
yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know.
Yeah,
And then this is just asking folks if they're interested to please leave their email so that we can contact them in the future about other engagement opportunities or questions that we might have. So,
Just
yeah.
on the previous slide about restrictions, would it help for people's understanding to maybe list examples?
Yeah, yeah, I think,
Would that be an option?
I don't know what you think about that part, because I know sometimes that can toe the line of like,
Leading the
yeah,
witness?
yeah.
Yeah, we could probably definitely see if we can somehow rephrase this in a way, but try not to insert any biases in the.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can think about alternative ways to word that. So that is pretty much the end of the survey. Is there, your immediate reaction, is there anything you feel like is really missing or that you want to know from members of the community about how they interact with open space or other conservation areas?
Can you talk about the timeline, and then how will the survey actually be used to write the narrative of the open space plan?
Yeah.
Or chapter?
So, timeline, so it is the 9th today. We're hoping to finalize the survey and send it out beginning of December so that we make sure to catch, those people leaving for winter holidays. And then we'll close it probably early to mid-January so that folks will have a solid month to respond. And then typically it'll take a month or so to really dig in and summarize those results, especially pending how many written responses come up in those open-ended questions. And then it'll be used to draft the narrative to kind of make sure that, A, we're talking about the things that people want to talk about in the narrative and what is important to residents in the community. And also to highlight those things in the chapter, or specific sites in the chapter that people expressed were most important to them or most visited, etc. And then also bringing that data to you to kind of verify and validate some of your recommendations that will go into the chapter. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I have
go ahead.
a question, or, I wonder if it's worth adding like an extremely like high level question that's basically just along the lines of, do you know where town conservation lands, parks, open spaces are?
I was thinking the same thing.
Like, maybe there's even a follow-up that's like, if yes, like how many? 0 to 3. Like, I think it may be shocking how many people actually don't know at all. It might be interesting to know kind of truly how people respond to that question.
Yeah, no, definitely. 'Cause that I like that because that will tell you, you know, what do you need to publicize and highlight more.
Yeah, I don't know, I know you don't want to add too much length to the survey, we were talking earlier, because there's a whole housing one section before this, but you could even have a list of 7 of our conservation areas and check off which ones, but you don't like to
Yeah.
do the check off thing, or is that?
I wanted to do that. I did have that as a thought for one of the questions. I think that is valid. If you would like a question like that, we can lengthen the survey and perhaps shorten it up in other areas if needed. But I do like that specificity. So yeah, I can
Because
definitely
it'd be
add.
kind of interesting, like, let's just say 100 people respond, and 10 people say they've all been to Tarrant Point, and like one person's been to Wigan Park, like we would know, like,
Yeah.
the visitation, which I think would be pretty interesting, right?
Helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could give you a list of places that we might want to list on the survey. Does that make sense to people?
What is the distribution methodology?
Yeah.
How is it getting sent out and
Yeah, so I think the goal is definitely to hear from residents first and foremost, but then also people who come to Newmarket to recreate, business owners, et cetera. And there is, I didn't show you all of the demographic questions, but there are those questions at the beginning so that we know who we're hearing from, whether or not they're a resident, et cetera. But I think some of our methods will be we're going to have some QR postcards or stickies to put up in local businesses so that people can scan them, you know, when they're getting their coffee or whatever. Potentially asking the schools to send home some of those postcards in backpacks. And also, I know some folks on the master plan subcommittee volunteered to kind of hang out around the boutiques downtown and try to get people to respond to the surveys. So, and honestly, any way that you think people will see the survey, we want to put it in front of them. You know, keeping paper copies at the library or senior center to expand accessibility to not just digital, things like that. So yeah, if you have any specific ideas or specific locations, definitely please let me know.
Stone
we're
Church.
targeting residents as well as visitors? So is there an alley that will go out, postcard kind of thing? Or
We
is
did
that-
talk about that, but the cost is so high that it's almost, yeah, it's not as worth it because the response rate, yeah, it's not going to boost it as much as it would versus posting to, you know, the resident Facebook page or something. Yeah,
Which we have a group for conservation, so yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
yeah, that'll be important definitely to share those links
to
out.
Share that.
Yeah.
And Instagram as well.
Yes. Yeah, and we'll make sure that you all have your kind of distribution packet once the survey's done, so you have your QR codes, postcards, printed copies.
For volunteers to maybe do door hangers, because you can't put something in your mailbox. But you could get volunteers to walk, just sort of like hanging out downtown in front of the restaurants and bars, but this is like,
You know,
walk your street, volunteer for your street, and put these door hangers on. And people will hopefully respond to us.
I think that's a great idea, and I do have some friends that work at Nature Groupie, so I'm happy to do that, make that connection. I think that's great. Anything else on the survey?
So when would you want additional feedback, specific feedback on the survey?
So I think in line with the master plan subcommittee makes sense, so a week from today if possible, and I'll make sure, you know, before I leave I'll send it right out to you so you have the link. And then on Monday I'll send you a more comprehensive follow-up email, but make sure you all have that. So yeah, by next Friday would be great. And then in terms of the recommendations, I think I'm happy to extend that timeline out a little bit. So, yeah, if you could have comments on top of Ellen's comments
Yeah,
in the
just
next.
email them everybody. So
Oh,
you have
great,
them,
yeah.
you know.
So in the next couple of weeks, that'd be great. That's less immediate.
And, I just want to say to everybody, I've been doing this stuff for a long time, but I think it's really important to have lots of perspectives. So please,
Yes.
please put your own input there. I think that's really important, and not to just have a few voices on this. So.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, and please feel free to email me whenever with whatever. My inbox is always open.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I really appreciate it. That was great, effective, and efficient work.
Are we going to talk about the maps or not tonight?
So, yes, we probably should touch on those. So I did receive your comments about the maps. The ones that you have in front of you have not been revised at all based on any comments. So same with the survey. If you could, by next Friday, take a first look at all of those and then provide any comments if you think that a map should have an additional layer on it to see the co-occurrence, or if you think a map is incorrect, that's missing a site or something like that. Or if you want a whole new map created in addition to these, that's also something that we can do. So, yeah, if you could have the survey and the maps reviewed by next Friday, that'd be awesome, because then I can, for the next meeting, have revised maps for you. And again, I'll list this all out in my email, so you don't have to worry about noting it now.
And I did send out edits to the maps, too.
Yes, yeah, you did.
Okay. But I just sent it out to the whole commission.
Okay.
So, and I had a bigger set of the maps printed, so if anybody is really keen on maps and wants to use this to go through the maps, they're a little easier to see than looking at the little ones. Does anybody, you want to look at them, Brian? Yeah, you can take them with you. And if anybody is really keen and wants another set, we can get another set printed.
Yeah, exactly. If anyone wants larger maps, 11 by 17s, I'm happy to print them out. So.
Yeah. It's definitely easier to see them on.
And then you'll have the PDF as well. Yeah.
Great. Any other, you want to talk a little bit about, we did talk about outreach a little bit, but there were some kind of creative ideas that were talked about in the meeting beforehand. I thought some of that stuff was kind of fun.
Yeah, so, we talked about having a trivia night upstairs at the Riverworks on zoning. I think that would be super fun. So, as I mentioned before, all of the engagement that we're doing throughout this process, we're trying to get as much out of it as possible. So there are going to be opportunities in working on the other chapters where we might be able to get some more feedback on open space sort of concepts. So some thoughts that we had talked about before, potentially having workshops situated as like a community dinner, potluck kind of situation, getting people into more of a relaxed, like, building community space instead of just, here's my presentation, blah, 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 because that's not any fun. We will have a housing workshop in the spring sometime, and then more in the fall. So thinking about how we can incorporate activities to touch on open space as well. And then,
I was just thinking about that because the timeline for the open space is pretty tight.
It is
right?
tight, yeah.
So that's why I was asking about the survey, because it seems like if the survey's not coming back till mid-Jan, and then you've got to process it all.
Mm-hmm.
But there's somewhere there's like a March to finish the draft, and so I wasn't sure how that timeline, is that kind of a solid timeline, or like?
Yeah,
it seems like we got to get this done really fast. So that's
I know it probably feels very condensed, but in comparison, so this chapter in comparison to the other master plan chapters, because it's funded so well, I have quite a lot of staff time to work on it.
Okay,
So
cool.
yeah, we'll have plenty of time in that short time frame to get things done.
And you'll be essentially writing the narrative, and then we'll comment on that.
Yep, yeah, and also I'll say I'm welcome to folks, submitting parts of the narrative if they would like to write it themselves, and then, I can edit and combine. But obviously, I am being paid to do the work, so I do not expect that of you at all. But yeah, always want to offer that.
Great.
But yeah, if there are any particular events coming up, I know we talked about, maybe there are some holiday events going on at the schools, things like that we could publicize the survey at, or,
There is the holiday craft fair is at the school on
Okay.
December 9th. So, there'll be craft vendors and people going to get Christmas presents and all that.
If there's any holiday concerts at the schools, I mean, the spaghetti supper for elementary was there. That's where I was tonight. I mean, there had to be like 300 people there. So it's like those draw a crowd,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
school events.
Yeah, because the craft fair would be something we could, not only we get the things at the door, but also ask each vendor to have a
Yeah.
staff on their
And
table.
we could have a person there to talk about open space too, if that's it fits in.
Good idea for that, so we can create a big QR code and say, take the survey, and so someone has like a,
Yep.
they can just walk around, hey, scan this,
Yeah.
take the survey.
Yeah,
Just
we
walking
could
down,
do
something
the
like that.
Yeah.
master plan table.
Yeah.
If you
That's right.
need I have
Screw
the
it.
email for that if you want that.
Sure,
Um,
that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be great.
So we'll just plan, will you come to all of our monthly meetings from here on out? Is
That was
the
going to be
plan?
my next question. If you're open to that, that'd be perfect. That's super easy scheduling for me, so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense for us, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, that's awesome. I appreciate you guys letting me come in tonight, and I think we got some great work done, and I'll look forward to emailing you on Monday.
Cool. You didn't talk about this, but I know the way the structure of the whole planning process, there's going to be these teams. So we're able to bring in more
Yeah.
people to work on it. So there might be people here that, can you just explain what you're thinking there?
So the master plan subcommittee, way we have it structured right now, we have a core group, and then as we're going through different chapters throughout this 2-year process, we're gonna, each committee member, subcommittee member is going to be assigned to chapter based on their, desire to be part of that team, work on that chapter. So when we're updating those specific chapters, we bring in other people in the community as well that maybe be able to help us out. So like these other members, for instance, this chapter, Conservation Commission, and the other folks as well. So it's kind of a fluid groups going in and out of different chapters, but again, having that core group there for the long haul.
So are we sort of thinking of the Conservation Commission as the team for the open space chapter?
Yeah, I would think so. So I'd
How you're
imagine
looking
you
at it?
and maybe someone else on the subcommittee would be the core group, and everyone here can be part of that subgroup. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of the plan.
Energy and environment. Great. Thank you. Thanks, Autumn.
Thank you.
Bart, do you have anything more for planning board planning stuff, or do you want to talk about the river? Are you guys going to talk about the riverfront stuff? The riverfront charrette or anything like?
I'll just let Sam do it next.
All right. All right, so we covered the other two, so let's just jump to riverfront advisory, and you're on, Sam.
Toss one of these down to Julie. Take these. So, passing out a map for everyone. I apologize for not sending it out earlier. I just made it at lunchtime today. But I guess in a nutshell, the committee, Riverfront Committee, has kind of had a series of pretty low-level revelations, I'll put it that way, of just where we could maybe start to promote a little bit more engagement activity down at the riverfront. So we had been talking about, well, all right, what have other communities done for master planning stuff? How have they utilized their riverfront areas, things like that. So we had kind of been looking around at some other folks, and there was this funny graph that I had found in Dover's household recreation activity participation is the name of the graph, but it was from their master plan, and it was just a bunch of different ways that people recreate. So, it's got everything on there: cycling, lacrosse, like volleyball, and I'm kind of laughing to myself, like, yeah, all right, not a lot of people are playing volleyball regularly, I would assume. And walking and hiking is on there, and it's at like 90% of people say that's something they do for recreation. And kind of was just laughing to myself about it, like, well, duh, of course. But it was sort of another building block along the line of, well, that's a good point. Everyone kind of walks and moves around, in their environment. Everyone exists in their environment. So we were kind of starting to talk about the concept of if the town would want to support almost creation of like a community trail. And one of the first things, the one in red, is sort of highlighting that initial connection between Shanda Park and Heron Point. It exists. You can go walk that red line right now. There's nothing that's preventing you from doing that. It goes back to, I think, the comment we just made of, does anyone know that that exists or that they're able to do that? And then kind of some of the lines in green, I apologize, the green looked a lot better on the computer screen than it did on the graph. But it was more the thoughts of, if you create a backbone of something around the riverfront, can you engage people in a way to expand that outward? Hey, walk south to go find the rec fields. Walk west down Elm Street to the library and the ball fields. Head up the hill to the stone church. Can you engage from, anything that, arts and tourism might be interested in, a historical perspective? I mean, I'll give Mike Hoffman like a shout out. Like every time I walk down to the riverfront with Mike Hoffman, I learn like 10 new things. So I feel like it's all out there, and it seems like the most low-hanging of fruit. You are talking like low-level signage or like a painted decal on the ground in a couple spots to let people know this is a thing. But I don't know if there's a specific ask, but it's something we've been talking about, and we wanted to start kind of bringing in front of other people of, does this seem like a decent idea to try to make something intentional to just show people the way? My wife and I talk about this all the time, but like, since we have kids, we'll like randomly go places. It's like, all right, we gotta get out of the house. So we'll just like go to another town, we go to a spot, but it's like, you don't really know what's around. Other people from Newmarket will come to Newmarket, end up in one spot, but then maybe they can spend the whole day here because they continue to pull the thread. So
Something like those grass things in the sidewalk,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
I think, the term you're looking for is wayfinding.
Yes.
Yeah. So
and that's kind of it. And it goes back to that question of all this stuff exists. This doesn't change literally anything. You can do all of this right now. It's, do people know that that's available to them? I think that's more the question that we've kind of started talking about as just incredibly low-hanging fruit to start promoting more engagement downtown. And then as hopefully more of these concepts come, with potentially seeing if we can expand that Riverwalk further south, see if we can create the living shoreline down there as an environmental feature, an educational feature, just incorporate them into something that's already starting to grow. So I don't know if there's a specific ask or anything at this time. It's mostly just what do people think, sit on it. We can talk about it next month, whatever you want to do, but as an advisory committee, we have zero power or authority or anything like that. And whereas I think the backbone of this to really encircle the riverfront right now is probably Shanda Park, Riverwalk, Heron Point. It seems like kind of pitching it here is a decent first step.
Something to look at for inspiration, it reminds me of Burlington Wildways in Vermont. They basically partnered with open space, natural land conservation, the Intervale, which is a farming community, and you can start at one end of Burlington by Winooski and walk all the way to Colchester. Of course, we don't have that kind of connectivity, at least not yet. But they have a whole organization now and they run programs and stuff, and it's just a whole network of trails that goes all the way through Burlington.
Which is kind of what you guys are.
Yeah,
Exactly what we're trying to go
yeah,
for, so-
exactly.
Yeah.
So they have a whole website and organization, so
That's
definitely
really
worth checking
neat.
out, yeah.
I'll check that out, because, yeah, I know this ties into the whole
Yeah,
concept of
pathways.
the
Mhm.
pathways,
Exactly, yep.
but yeah, kind of creating a community trail within here. I mean, Dover has one to a degree, you know, even to a much more grand version like the Freedom Trail of Boston, but, you know, maybe we're not painting a bright yellow line all the way through town, but just something that lets people know where they are. Like, there's an intentional connectivity here, and if you're interested in X, Y, or Z, head that way.
I think it's fabulous, Sam. I think you guys have more, like you're talking about don't have power, but that's not the point. You guys are bringing this idea, and I think that's what it's all about, right? Of generating these ideas and getting community support. I think it's fabulous.
Absolutely right. That's why the Riverfront Advisory Committee was created to generate these types of ideas and recommendations to town council. So, no, I think that's great stuff. And, showcase, highlights, downtown businesses, the conservation areas, all these wonderful attributes that the town has. And we can do that through, good branding, good wayfinding.
So I was curious about the getting across there. The bridge, is this the bridge that, Brian, you were
Yes.
talking about? It needs repair, that one, right?
Yeah.
But that's basically a public way all across and through the
Yep.
development there? And you
I'm
can walk-
I'm almost
Are you talking about the mill?
Yeah, the
bridge?
mill bridge
the
there.
mill, the Bryant Rock. I'm like
Oh, the bridge there.
95% sure that's a public way.
Yes, that's town.
It's all public way, all the way over to Dame Road,
Dame Road there.
or Bay Road,
No, this is
sorry.
Bay Road.
Bay Road, I mean.
I don't have the map on.
All the way to Bay Road.
Same road.
So you can walk all the way through there, public way.
Yeah.
So there's
Like, almost positive.
I mean, we do it,
There are
but I
easements
didn't-
there,
no one ever said, don't do it.
Right.
Yep, so I'm doing the red line, I have to double check if it goes through the two mill buildings there, like enough, because I know you can go on the sidewalk and cut through. Well, I'll double check on the easements, but I'm pretty sure this is accurate.
That's awesome. Yeah,
This
that's
is
cool.
through their parking lot.
It goes through the parking lot of the
The
mills
line
on the
that's
west
out.
side. It goes over the pedestrian bridge and then goes through Bryant Rock, but I'm pretty sure there's a public access through Bryant Rock to Bay
Because
Road.
there's a public easement to the waterfront there too.
Yeah.
At the
Yeah,
dock.
that's cool. That's so great. Because then that connects over to your trail over
Lamp
there.
Road.
Yeah.
Very cool. Love it. Go for it if you do. Do you want, if it would help to have any time in Dorothy or just like people?
I think it's just building support, building concept, and letting more people than the 4 or 5 of us have kind of been discussing it, hear about it, solicit some feedback. I mean, drawing a red line on a piece of paper like that really does illustrate how far it is to Heron Point.
Had been talk at one point of making a bridge across the river, but I don't think that ever went anywhere. Just because it'd be a
It-
I talked to Mike about that a long time ago, and
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's people that are really interested in it, and people who are really against it.
Yeah.
Now that Heron Point is protected and conserved, I think it's something that could be on the table.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're trying to
Let's
figure
just
out
say no.
through community outreach. So like understanding what people want, is one of our, core elements of this whole process is, understanding what the community wants. Do they support a bridge? We don't know. We're asking all these questions. So how would they want to access Heron Point? Would they, do they want a boardwalk, along the river, stuff like that. So, So that's what we're gonna do with the design charrette, as well, the riverfront, and also different surveys that we create during this master plan process.
And I think it's just, not to the surprise of this committee because of how much time and effort got invested last year in kind of redoing Heron Point. But I actually think I went out there really probably for the first time since all that got done right after our last meeting. And I went with our kids. I took my 3 and 5-year-old, and it's just the 3 of us, and it's fall, so all the leaves are down. And I let the 5-year-old lead us through the trails, and we only got turned around once. So that property is big, it is accessible, it is easy to navigate, and people should go there.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's beautiful. It is a beautiful spot. Cool, that's great. Yeah, anything else for, so, that's something else for Shannon Park, but anything else for the planning, all that?
Riverfront, no, so I guess for the design charrette, we had to hear back from them on the plan in New Hampshire, but we may get pushed to fall for the design charrette for the riverfront. But that might be a better time too, so everyone's coming back at that point from vacation, instead of gearing up for vacation when we originally planned for it. So, yeah, so stay tuned on that. But no, I think that's good direction that the commissioners gave to Sam and the Riverfront Advisory Committee for the wayfinding. That's something that town manager has talked about too, about wayfinding. Looking for opportunities to do that. So I think it's been in the works for a little bit, at least in the ether. But if we can get something a little more concrete, I think that'd be great.
I think both pedestrian and then as you go out, the bicycling, and so bike racks and things like that. There's an opportunity to let people safe ways to get from place to place.
Yeah, and that's part of the survey too. How do you access, or how do you get to downtown? How do you travel to downtown?
A couple things about Shannon Park. Any update on the signage that we had talked about, different signage for the Shannon Park in terms of feeding ducks and not feeding ducks and that kind of thing?
Right, yeah, so you and I, we've met, talked about that with the code enforcement officer, and we can finalize a sign soon to put there. Talk to Dave, and he's still mulling over, but I think we just have to get the verbiage together.
Okay.
And then we can...
Bring it back here and then...
Yeah, bring it back here and then finalize it and then send it to town manager.
I feel like there was something else that just slipped my mind about Shannon Park.
Yeah. We did do a tour. Today I gave a tour with Lindsay and town manager C. Fournier. It was at the planning conference, APA conference, planning conference. So it was about 15 people, and we just basically did a walking tour of downtown, started ended at Shannon Park, and we just talked about all the all the good things that happened to downtown over the years, and then where we are now and where we are looking to go towards. So it was very successful, and it seems like everyone enjoyed themselves. So, did you like the tour?
Yes.
Yes. So it was
Great.
good.
I know it was Moonlight Brook. Status of the water quality sampling, or any update on that?
Not to speak to Lindsay, but not that I have. Do you?
Yeah, it came up at our last meeting. They had tested, they had a lot of the test data. They hadn't done the breakout. I'm not a biologist, chemist, or whatever the breakdown of, hey, we found bacteria, what is the actual genus or species that's contributing. That hadn't been done. There was some issues with getting all of the sampling in the upper part of the watershed. So Lindsay, I think, did talk to Dr. Jones a little bit more about that. All the numbers were a lot higher this year, kind of to the surprise of no one because of how wet it was. So I just think every sample taken everywhere was high. So.
And the idea is trying to pinpoint where the sources are, but if every source has, every sample has it.
Still seems to kind of be everywhere in Moonlight Brook.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Did find, I'm not going to say where, but a catch basin that could be having illicit discharge in there. So that could be, then it would, at that point, enter in Moonlight Brook. So we're just looking, we're gonna investigate that a little further. But again, there's a lot of underground pipes up there. And, just taking inventory of those and making sure that no one's connecting to them that shouldn't be. So, so that could be, one of the issues, but, so stay tuned on that
Okay.
when we get updates.
All right, any other questions for Bart or thoughts? Great. Thanks, Bart.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thanks, Sam.
Our,
Do you have any-
our next meeting is Monday. There's one other item that I think I'll probably save till December, just because I think we need to get more info. But the committee's been presented an interesting potential alternative or addition for the living shoreline work that I personally think is definitely worth getting more information on. So I'll hopefully come with more of that in December.
Okay, great. Thank you. Other committee, Energy and Environment, Julie.
I missed the last meeting, but I got an update from the chair. Let's see. So mainly the highlight she said is they are working on transportation stuff with Newmarket's loss of public transportation, ideas around maybe some kind of Uber-like system with a sliding scale. It's one of Ellen Reed's passions is definitely transportation in Newmarket and affordable transportation. So I know they're working on that. And then there hasn't been too many other bigger updates. We're still plugging away.
All right.
Yeah.
Any questions for Julie?
But I will ask them, I've got it written down, see if anyone would be interested in the master plan stuff to come in the next,
Okay,
come to
yeah.
the next meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Awesome. 300th anniversary committee?
Yes.
Melissa.
So we are, I mean, it's still early stages. Related to Conservation Commission, we've kind of been batting around the idea of something like a passport program, where we can get passports made either for kids or even for an adult version or something if people wanted to do that kind of thing. And put together a program where we could either do stickers or stamps or something like that for the different properties and things like that. So we could come up with other programs, other interesting things to do for people in town. We are starting to get in logo submittals for the overall logo for the 300 celebration. Just wondering, do we want to do that for us specifically as well? You were talking earlier about bookmarks and things like that. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we could create specific for us. I am meeting next Thursday with Promo Centric, which is down on Forbes Ave. I'm in charge of tchotchke and all that stuff, so we're going to be talking T-shirts and whatever, bunting and everything for the entire celebration. But as part of that, we could talk about, do we want to have specific things that are dedicated for conservation? And if so, how does that work into funding and stuff like that? The other thing to think about is whether there are any known grants. We've got, hopefully, Alex is helping us with some grant writing, Cohen's wife. But, worth a think is there anything specific that would be some sort of crossover between conservation and the event itself, historical event or anything like that. So I I think that's worth researching. So, that's about it. It's very early stages for things, so.
With these things, passport, T-shirts, whatever, I think, will they be, so it's 2027?
Yeah, the event
So
is
this stuff
in
would
20.
be produced like the year before or the year of? Or?
So what's happening is, the 300th anniversary is in 2027, but the 250th anniversary of the U.S. is in 2026. So we are planning for both. So there's that to think about as well. So everything is getting wrapped into one committee. So I think we would have to have the 250th obviously first, and then just wrap everything up.
All right, those creative folks out here.
Yep.
Let Melissa know. I've got other skills, but that's not my particular line. Great. Any other questions for Melissa? Ideas, suggestions? All right. Thank you. Conservation easement monitoring. Tom couldn't be here. He's kind of overseeing that. Let's see. I finished the Schneer easement, which is off Mill Trail, Oldie Road, Oldie Trail. It's a small property, no trails, nothing happens on that. Everything looks good. And I did the Gaziano tract, the Piscassa Greenway, and that's also was nice. I did send a report to CELT, and mostly fine. It was not a strange issue, but it was pretty much okay. And I have to do Silverman, which I'll do in early December. And you're going to still do...
Yep,
discuss
2
the
weeks
place
from
up?
tomorrow.
All right, 2 weeks from
5
tomorrow.
years running.
And you're still all set to do Bald Hill?
Yeah, I gotta connect with
Jeff?
Jeff still,
Yeah.
but I am planning on it.
Yeah. And you're going to do Smith Sisters? All right. Great. Yeah, so Tom will be happy to hear all that.
Was Celt's gonna mow that field?
So Sharon's not going to do it.
Yeah, she couldn't. The
Yeah.
year was awful.
So they are going to, I think, hire someone that's going to mow it for them. So
I was wondering.
presumably that'll happen.
Sharon
short.
wishes she could.
Yeah. Yeah, so they are planning to mow it this fall. Yeah, and I guess I have down the trails a little bit later, so. So I'll just say, somebody planted some apple tree seedlings out there, weirdly,
Yeah.
on Celt land. The tree stand is on the abutting land, but looking at the three saplings, they're actually saplings. A bit odd.
Deliberately planted.
Yeah, no, they're
Not
freshly
the
planted. I can
seeds
tell they're
that
freshly
fell.
planted. So I relayed that to them. I mean, it's not really a
No, that's interesting.
easement violation, it's just weird. So they can do what they need to. So,
Deer food.
yeah. Okay, so let's move on to land stewardship. Wigan Farm, I've sent off some material to Greg DeSanto, who does the maps, so he's gonna work on those in the next month or so. So I don't really have anything more there. Falls Brook boundary reconnaissance, that's going to be in December, and we've already talked about that, so we can continue. I'll let people know when we might do that. Hoping frozen ground, or at least pretty solid ground, but no snow is the idea. Sliding Rock Phase 2, so I heard back from Suzanne Peterson, who is the LRAC coordinator, and their group is still kind of interested. Remember how we talked about the boat launch and the beach at Sliding Rock, that there was maybe some erosion issues and we might need to look at that? Well, they still want us to look at that. They've had some people, some older people feel that the boat launch is a little uneven for launching their kayak, and so then they go over to the beach and then that causes erosion, so there's issues. And so we have an opportunity to apply to LRAC again to hire somebody first we need somebody to assess to even know if we want to do anything to it. Does it need anything? And I asked Bart, we're going to see if, or Sam, maybe you know, if we can at least get some estimate. I think we tried this before, but like we're not talking about the actual work. We're talking about hiring someone who would go and assess it and make recommendations on, yeah, you should should add material, you'll need a wetlands permit, and here's how you fix the erosion, kind of thing. So the second part of that is, when I went out there, I had to put up the plaque mel rack on the kayak rack, and I realized, for some reason I hadn't before, but right behind the kiosk, and just sort of right there, there are a lot of invasive plants, some of which were planted, I think, when the original group put up the kiosk, which is fine. So my thought is that we do like an Earth Day event and get like high school students and anybody else who wants to volunteer, and we pull out the invasives and cut. I don't think it's a ton of work. I think it's a morning or something. And then we figure out a little planting plan, which I think we can come up with ourselves, and buy either bare root or from local nurseries or somewhere native plants, and replant again with the volunteers. And so really the cost is buying the plants, and we can put that in the LRAC grant, and they would pay for the plants. So we could add that in if we do another LRAC proposal, but we need to get, so anyway, what do you think about that?
Yeah, we've also got pollinator pathway seeds too.
Yeah, so we could put those around out there too. Yeah. So do you think we should try to figure out if we can find someone to at least assess it for us? You know, if we really need to do any improvements there?
I'm trying to think right now.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to do it right now. Just
Yeah.
if we want to do that, and Sam or Bart, if we can come up with some estimate, then we can just submit the proposal to LRAC and see if they fund it.
Is that something you would do?
Colin, have you assessed like that kind of thing, or?
I haven't,
Yeah.
not
It's like, it's an
technically.
engineering,
Yeah.
you need a.
Yeah.
you
Can
need a-
reach out to a couple firms, see if it gives a ballpark.
Yeah,
I mean, how detailed do we need it?
I don't know, Sam, have you done anything
You're
like this?
looking for an evaluation and a design.
Yeah,
So we're just looking for how much that would cost, not
right,
the
so is it
actual-
like
yeah.
$2,000 that some
Right.
firm would come out and send one person out who knows anything about,
Yeah.
it needs somebody to know something about boat launches and beach.
I was thinking either, Sam, maybe I can pick Sam's brain offline
Okay.
on who
Yeah.
that may
Okay.
be.
Let's
I have a
talk.
couple,
Talk for a bit.
yeah, I have a couple firms in mind,
Okay.
so see if Sam concludes. Sam to mind.
7,500. I don't think it would, if it's more than that,
Yeah.
I would be surprised if it's that much, right?
Yeah.
It can't be that much. So if we can come up with budget, is it okay if we draft something and submit it to LRAC? 'Cause they have a rolling application, and it's pretty easy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I think it's definitely worth
Yeah.
submitting and then back into a scope with somebody
Yeah.
after, once you get the
Yeah,
funding.
yeah. Okay, cool. All right. All right, Boulder Drive, we're ready.
Boulder Drive. So I think everybody has a map that Bart handed out. So it's a pretty short trail, 1,200 feet roughly, between Dame Road and Lamprey Street. It's, overall, it's rough, but it's not going to take a whole lot to bring it up to safe footing, if you will, across the whole trail. I mean, there's some wet spots, there's some roots coming out. I don't know how long ago you were on it, but it's taken a beating over the last 5 years that I've been walking on it. So I think it's something that really needs to get done to protect the environment, to protect the trail. As I think I had mentioned before, I had met with the HOA representatives. It's changed over since the last time I've talked about it. The new gentleman, very receptive to what we talked about while we were out there. You can see the 5 spots that I marked on that map that kind of need work. I think, from some of the neighbors, I've gotten, we don't want to make it a highway. It's a walking trail for a handful of people to go from Dame Road, and local people at that. I mean, I don't see us going beyond Dame Road. There's not a lot of land to do a trail out beyond that. So it would really be kind of a shortcut for people out on Dame Road coming into town or going back out to Dame Road. there's not many people in the Boulder group that use it. You know, I walk it twice a day, and I don't ever see anybody out there. But I think if we improved it, it would be used, not heavily, but used. So I think I've got a budget in there as well.
It's on the back of the map.
Just a ballpark of what it would take to bring it up to speed. I think the majority of it would be crushed stone with some top dressing on the crushed stone, wood chip, fiber, something, you know, I'd have to do some homework on what the ideal durable top dressing would be over that stone. There's a little bit of relocation that would take place. There's one stretch that it's a little bit on the hillside, so the thought would be to go around that to get back up on flat land. There is a space there that we can utilize that would be flat and not on an incline. So, you know, I realistically think it would take a couple days of a crew going out there, and I'm talking volunteer crew, whoever we could get to go out there and upgrade it. I think we could get some of the locals to come out and do it. If anybody on the CONSCOM is interested, you know, wheelbarrows, moving stone. We have a staging area off of Dame Road that's a pretty good size, so a truck could come in and dump stone there, and then we could move it from there. You know, again, I don't think it's a major highway. We're just going to look at doing a maybe 3-foot wide trail to get from one end to the other.
The crushed stone base, 20 yards, that's a lot of material. What are you thinking the depth of that did you calculate it like a depth? How'd you
You know,
calculate 20 yards?
there's some sections that it's probably 3 inches of root above the trail itself. So I'd want to cover those roots. So, you know, maybe 6 inches of stone.
Yeah.
We have a lot of down timber out there that we have permission to use as sort of a downslope control point. So, you know, I think, again, we just don't want it to be a saturated trail, so we don't have to put a lot in, but enough to move some of that water that would be surface runoff through the stone.
Have you thought about, you have wood chips on top of the coarse stone. Have you thought about smaller hard pack on top?
You and I had talked about that.
To be honest, I'm not a fan of wood chips on trails.
Yep.
They really cause
And it could go that direction. Again, this is just open for discussion. Paul, who lives at the end of the trail, really is against the hard pack, I think.
Oh, yeah. I know.
And,
That's funny.
you know, I think the idea is that, you know, he would prefer it to look as natural as possible. And the hard pack is not going to look natural. It's going to be durable and last, but it's not going to look natural.
Well, I mean, I understand that. That makes some sense. My second thought on the wood chips, if you went that route, what about just getting a delivery from a tree company because it's free?
That's what I would, you know.
Yeah. Okay.
Durham dump there has piles and piles of it. So you get a couple truckloads, could you move that down? Is that inviting invasives? I don't know. Somebody else might have to
Possibly, yeah.
make.
I mean, it's, no matter what material you bring, you have the potential for invasives.
Right, and there's already invasives in there, so it's not like it's a pure landscape as it is. But, you know, every person that I talk to who comes down Lamprey Street, you know, I think would love to see that little trail go through. Just get off the road. Everybody does walk the road right now. Would you use it?
I use it all the time, but my thought process is it's a very small trail, and the best way for us to avoid erosion and keep it looking natural is to leave it alone. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and not,
It's
not, I just don't see it as being worthy of being advertised
And I don't think it would be. I mean, I wouldn't plan to advertise it and sign it and stuff like that. But I think it's pretty rough right now, you know, for
the
twisting
the
ankles.
3 people who use it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, if it is on our list of trails in town, which I think it is, as a hiking trail, then I don't think we want it to be as rough as it is. And I don't know if the HOA gave that to us,
That was
you know,
part of the
legally.
subdivision.
What's that?
That's part of the subdivision process. Yeah.
So,
That there'd be some kind of dedicated trail like that. I have to still look in the easement, see if there's actual easement there.
Who holds the liability though?
We'll have to see, if there's an easement, then
Yeah,
the
it's-
easement, whoever is the grantee would probably have the liability.
if you don't do any improvement, right now, there's no liability, because it's a publicly available, it's open to the public recreation, and New Hampshire law is pretty clear on that, but once we start doing improvements, I don't know. Things there.
yeah, that's something we want to find an answer
Yeah.
on, because I think the HOA is going to want to know, they don't want the liability on it. I mean, they're supportive of us going in and doing the work, but they're not interested in paying for it or then being liable for it. And I think they, as I think Melissa would like to see it not be a highway. You know, they don't want to see a ton of people coming through there, but they also would appreciate it if there's, you know, a way to walk that distance without being on the road.
I think if we're using public funds, then we've got to have some expectation that more people should use it, you know, with the town funds.
Yeah, I mean, it would then be available, but I mean, unless you would argue the fact that it should be advertised, I don't think it's going to be advertised.
I think it's just right now what it is, it's just a trail that loops around Lamprey Street and Tame Road. That's all it is at this moment. There's no other connectors. You know, what could it be in the future? That's a different question.
Right.
But as of right now, it's just, you know, for the neighborhood really to enjoy.
Yeah.
As it is right now. It doesn't mean not anyone else couldn't use it. It's just the reality. Just because it isn't, it's kind of hidden. So
Yeah.
I think in the grand scheme of things, we want to think what it could become.
Yeah. Well, two other questions.
What's the community want it to be?
Right. The fencing in there, they were kind of surprised at how much that has encroached on their property. So I think they would love to see that out of there. So the question came up by the landowner who is next to it, who, you know, theoretically he owns both of those properties now. The fence was put up before they bought the place, but it's still theirs because he bought the place. So his concern is that he doesn't want to be hit with a bill to take it down and then dispose of it. It's probably, what would you guess, 150 feet maybe of fencing?
Yep, probably.
So, you know, I think we could take it down easy enough.
That's something, 3 of us could do that.
Yeah, we could take it down pretty easily, but I think we'd want to coil it up, take it to the end of the trail, and then if DPW would be able to take it and dispose of it, that would be the ideal and what they would appreciate as well.
Yeah, I'll talk to DPW and see if we were to bring it to the street, will they take it away?
Yeah.
And then we could just organize the day.
Yeah.
Let them know when it's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. The other question that we've explored is potentially extending that trail over to Bay Road because the HOA owns the property. You can think you can see it on the map. If it's not on this one, yeah, I don't know. You can't really tell, but their property goes out to Bay Road, And we had discussions, or I did, with John Spear, who is the property owner that Heron Point, the house that people owned and owned Heron Point, he bought the house, the land was conserved. He's thinking in the next year or so, he's going to sell the house and he and his wife will move. I think there'll be a lot of interest in that, and I know one person who currently lives on Bay Road is interested in making an offer and using that land back there for educational purposes. I'll put it that way. So the idea, and I think I've explained this before at a last meeting, that, you know, could we go from Dame Road to Heron Point without going through the trailer park? And technically, there's a way to do that on land if we have permission to cross John's little strip of property there. It is a wetlands on the HOA side of Bay Road, so we would have to do some work on improving that to get through. It's not really wet, but it is wet, and there's a stream that would have to be crossed. Again, I just plant the seed. It's not something I think that's going to happen in the next year or so, but down the road there could be an extension to that where somebody could walk from Dame Road over to Heron Point Trails without going on the road.
And I think that's the whole concept that we're trying to do with, you know, pathways for people and whatnot, you know, is, you know, having conversation with the community, where do you want these trails, where are there opportunities, you know, as they pop up, you know, to create that connectivity. So, yeah. So, you know, I think it's great just planting seeds, gets everyone thinking, and, you know, see where those, you know, when opportunities do come up, then, you know, tell the commission, you know, and they work, you know, capitalize on it.
It could be where people on the riverfront downtown could go up Bay Road and go in before the trailer park and get to those trails without going past necessarily anybody's house on the riverfront.
Remind me again where that would be between the gray house and the white house that's there.
So on the HOA side, there's the fire hydrant there.
Yep,
Across the street is Peter's house.
the gray one, right?
The
Yep.
gray one who had the kayak
With all
program.
the goats and everything in the back, yeah.
Yeah. And John told me his property, there's a right-of-way, a strip right next to Peter's property,
So John is
in
to the
between
right,
those two houses.
The white house?
Yeah. That's in rough shape,
Okay.
yeah. So there's a little strip of land that comes down from the Heron Point property, we'll call it, to Bay Road
All
right
the-
there.
All those rocks and everything, right?
There's a right-of-way, yeah, it's a stone wall.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
okay.
So that's it
So we
right
have
there.
to like move that and build a path in through there? Is
You'd
that-
have to build a path
Yeah,
through.
okay.
Yep.
If the landowner was interested.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
It's what?
If the landowner was interested,
Yeah,
that's the key.
right,
It's
exactly.
important that we're talking about other people's property, I think,
I
to
just
recognize
trying
that,
to figure out where.
so.
Anyway,
So-
that's the update.
Yep.
I'll keep everybody posted. I'm hoping that we can maybe do the fencing fairly soon.
Yeah, before the land.
And then, you know, I think probably, you know, it's, season's changing now, we're probably not gonna get to doing the trail work until spring. So, and then the budget. I mean, the budget would have to be approved and, you know, do we have funding to do it? That's the other side of it.
Just a thought to think about with the boardwalk and the walking bridge, maybe think about like hemlock instead of pressure treated, because there's so much hemlock now that you can get, it is pretty, it lasts a really long time.
Yep.
So that might, you know, getting back to Paul's idea of some more natural materials.
Yeah,
It might be
no,
interesting
agreed.
to pursue hemlock.
Yep.
So the HOA doesn't want to put any money into it. Is that the impression you have?
I think they have enough expenses already. One could argue that could be an expense that they could absorb, but I think what I've gathered from them is that that's not their responsibility. I mean, I could go to them and ask them again, and say if we approve the budget and we're looking at potentially a small donation from them, we could ask. I mean, I think they would benefit from it, the landowners in there.
For sure, yeah, I think that's important to think about, right? Yeah. Yeah, well, I think we still need to sort of sort out the whole ownership and responsibility and liability and so forth,
Yeah, Bart, if you could get that back to us as soon as possible, that'd be great, and then I'll schedule a meeting with them again.
Yeah, happy to do that.
Thanks.
Any other questions or thoughts? Nope. All right, thanks for pulling
You're
that
welcome.
together. I don't really have any update for the Neal Mill and Old Lee Class 8 trails. Southeast Land Trust is still working on their update to their management plan for the whole Piscasset Greenway, which abuts, of course, the Neal Mill Trail. And so we were sort of waiting to see if they're going to plan a timber harvest out using Neal Mill Trail before we think about any kind of restoration or trail work there. So, so we're just kind of on hold waiting for that to happen. Right, fortunately, it's actually nice and dry and stopped raining, so ground's getting a little harder, so it's actually pretty good right now. Yeah, anything else for other projects? All right, the only thing else we have are events. So we have the astronomy night at the Nature Conservancy office on January 8th. The Earth Day idea for the Sliding Rock invasive project, native plant, we'll keep that posted on that. And then the only other event I had is just something that Bart, we have the Pathways and the Connect to Protect folks that gave us some technical assistance. They're having a lunch and learn, I guess. And so they've invited us and other towns. I don't quite know who's going to attend, but to give a little update of all these cool things we're doing in Newmarket, right?
Yeah, it's kind of to showcase what we're doing here in town and, how we worked with their program. I think it's try to showcase their program too. Like, this is how we interacted with Connected to
Right,
Protect.
because other communities
Yeah.
can come.
Yeah,
and,
exactly, so.
And that's what, December,
I think 9,
something like that.
yeah,
That's a Saturday, right?
it's not the 9.
Eighth. Nope.
Yeah.
The 8th, Friday, at noon.
I know that because that's the day of the craft fair.
Ah,
And I'm gonna have a
maybe.
table. Something's fun.
Yeah, any other events? Alert people to? Craft fair? Great. All right, motion to adjourn?
Financial?
No, I don't have a report because we're early in the month and they don't have them and there's some staff that are out, so it's about the same as last month. We haven't spent much, I don't think.
A motion to adjourn.
All right, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great.